All right, let's dive into a story that's got, well, everything you could want. Family drama, ambition, and some, let's just say, questionable choices. We're talking about the biblical story of Esau and Jacob, specifically that whole birthright bargain situation. We've got a YouTube video here that really goes into the details, and, well, it's wild. Imagine being so hungry you trade your entire inheritance for, like, a bowl of stew. That's what happened to Esau, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely more than meets the eye. It's not just sibling rivalry. It's all wrapped up in this idea of divine intervention and some really complex questions about, like, right and wrong, good and evil.
Okay, so before we get to the stew, can you set the scene for us? Who are these guys? What's going on in their family?
Well, we start with Isaac, the son of Abraham, the patriarch of the Israelites. He marries Rebekah, but things aren't easy for them. They actually struggle to have kids for 20 years.
20 years. Whoa, that's a long time. I can only imagine the pressure that puts on a couple, especially with this lineage being so important.
Exactly. It mirrors the story of Abraham and Sarah, which really emphasizes the importance of faith and divine intervention in this whole family line. But finally, Isaac's prayers are answered, and Rebekah becomes pregnant. And get this, she's having twins. But even before they're born, there's this sense of, I don't know, almost a premonition of conflict.
Ooh, I love a good foreshadowing. So what kind of conflict are we talking about? Were they like fighting over toys in the womb or something?
Not quite. Rebekah's pregnancy is described as being very difficult, almost as if the twins are wrestling inside her. It's so intense that she goes directly to God for answers.
Wow, talk about cutting out the middleman. So what does God tell her about these two little wrestlers?
God reveals something pretty shocking. He says these twins will represent two nations that will be in conflict, and the older will serve the younger. It completely flips the script on the traditional hierarchy of inheritance and power.
Hold on, so if God's already declared this, does that mean Esau and Jacob don't even have a say in the matter? Like, are their choices even really their own?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? This whole prophecy throws the whole idea of destiny versus free will into question. Are their actions predetermined? Or do they actually have the power to change their fate?
Okay, so we've got this prophecy looming over everything. What happens when these two finally enter the world?
Well, Esau is born first, covered in red hair. The video describes him as looking like a hairy garment. Then Jacob comes out holding on to Esau's heel, like he's trying to pull him back in.
Wow, that's such a striking image. It's almost like they're competing from the moment they're born.
What do you think is the significance of Jacob grabbing Esau's heel?
It's definitely symbolic, right? Foreshadowing their future power struggle. Even their names seem to hint at their destinies. Esau means hairy or rough, while Jacob means heel grabber or even supplanter. It's as if their personalities are already, like, written into their names.
Fascinating. So as they grow up, do their personalities actually match those names? The source definitely highlights their contrasting personalities. Esau becomes this skilled hunter, a rugged outdoorsman, while Jacob prefers to stay closer to home. He's described as being more thoughtful, maybe even a little scheming.
So it's like their upbringing reinforces these initial symbolic impressions we get from their birth. Esau's out there conquering the wilderness, and Jacob's at home, maybe brewing up some plans, and of course that infamous stew. When does that come into play?
Well, one day Esau comes back from a hunting trip absolutely famished. And wouldn't you know it, Jacob's at home cooking up a delicious pot of lentil stew.
I can already see where this is going. Poor Esau, he never stood a chance.
He's desperate for food and begs Jacob for some of that stew. And Jacob, well, he sees an opportunity.
Here we go, the moment of truth. What does he ask for in exchange for a simple bowl of stew?
His birthright.
Wait, really? His entire birthright for some stew? That seems pretty harsh, even for a hungry hunter.
It does, doesn't it? But remember, this whole story is playing out under the shadow of that prophecy. Jacob may believe he's simply fulfilling what God has already ordained. It raises the question, is he really taking advantage of his brother, or is he just seizing what he believes is rightfully his?
That's a great point. And it makes you think about how far someone might go if they believe they're acting on some, like, divine mandate. So what does Esau do? Does he give in? So Esau is starving. Jacob's got this deal in front of him. What happens next? Does he, like, cave and just hand over his birthright for a bowl of stew?
He does. He's so focused on his immediate hunger. He basically dismisses the whole importance of the birthright. He even says to Jacob, look, I am about to die. What good is the birthright to me?
Oh, talk about being hangry. But it makes you wonder, if he was really that close to death, couldn't he have, like, found something else to eat? I mean, he was a skilled hunter, right? Do you think there's more to his decision than just an empty stomach?
It's interesting, isn't it? The video suggests a few different interpretations. Maybe Esau just, I don't know, didn't actually value the birthright as much as Jacob did. He was a man of action. Maybe he was more interested in like the thrill of the hunt and the immediate rewards it brought, rather than the long-term power and spiritual inheritance associated with the birthright.
It's almost like he's thinking short-term satisfaction versus long-term legacy. But still, to just give it up like that, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around.
You're right. It's a decision that's puzzled people for centuries. But it really gets to the heart of this story, doesn't it? What are we willing to sacrifice for immediate gratification? How much do we value things that might seem, abstract or far off in the future?
This is getting pretty philosophical.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, the birthright wasn't just some symbolic title, right? It came with some serious perks.
Absolutely. The birthright meant inheriting a double portion of the family's wealth and ultimately becoming the head of the family. It held both material and spiritual significance.
Okay, so Jacob's got the birthright. But how does he actually claim all those benefits? I mean, it's one thing to make a deal with your brother, but it's another to make it, official, right?
Right, and that's where things get even trickier. Remember Isaac's father, Abraham? Well, he received this special blessing from God, a covenant that promised his descendants would be blessed and become a great nation.
Right, that whole chosen people thing, it's kind of a big deal in this story. So this blessing gets passed down through the generations.
Exactly. And traditionally, it would go to the firstborn son.
But in this case, Jacob, the younger twin, has the birthright. Does that automatically mean he gets the blessing too?
Well, you would think so, but it's not quite that straightforward. Isaac, as the father, still has to formally bestow the blessing. And remember, the video mentioned that Isaac actually favors Esau.
This is juicy. So we've got a father who wants to bless his older son, a younger son who technically holds the birthright, and this divine prophecy hanging over all of them. What happens next? Does Jacob just sit back and hope for the best?
Not exactly. Jacob, with a little help from his mother, Rebekah, comes up with a, pretty elaborate plan to deceive Isaac into giving him the blessing.
Ooh, I smell trouble. Okay, I'm all ears. How do they pull this off?
Well, Isaac is getting old, and his eyesight isn't what it used to be. He decides it's time to give the blessing to Esau. He asks Esau to go out and hunt some game, prepare a delicious meal, and then come back for the blessing.
That seems like a pretty standard request from a patriarch in those days, so where does the deception come in?
Rebekah overhears this conversation, and she jumps at the opportunity. She tells Jacob to go and fetch 2 young goats from the flock.
Goats! Why goats?
It's not really about the goats themselves. Rebekah's plan is to cook them in a way that, mimics Esau's usual hunting spoils. Remember, Esau's the hairy, outdoorsy one.
I see where you're going with this. She's going to make Jacob a meal that tastes and smells like something Esau would have hunted. But how are they going to convince Isaac that Jacob is actually Esau? Isaac might be losing his sight, but surely he can tell the difference between his sons.
That's where the real trickery comes in. Rebekah dresses Jacob in Esau's clothes, and get this, she covers his hands and neck with the goat skins.
Hold on. She's trying to make Jacob look and smell like Esau. That's some serious commitment to this scheme. But wouldn't Isaac feel the difference? I mean, Esau's described as being pretty hairy, and I'm guessing Jacob isn't quite as rugged.
You would think so, right? But remember, Isaac's eyesight is failing, and he's relying more on his other senses. He's expecting Esau. So when Jacob comes in smelling like his older brother and feeling, unexpectedly hairy, Isaac is completely fooled.
Wow, what a bold move. So does Isaac fall for it? Does he give Jacob the blessing?
He does. Jacob goes to his father. And Isaac, totally unaware of the deception, gives him the blessing intended for Esau.
This is incredible. What exactly does this blessing say? What kind of power or fortune does it bestow?
It's a pretty powerful blessing. Isaac tells Jacob, "May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's richness and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed."
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Sounds like Jacob is set up for a life of, abundance and power, even dominance over his brother. But what about Isaac? What happens when he realizes he's been tricked? And Esau, how does he react when he finds out? So Jacob's got the blessing, Isaac's been tricked, and Esau's, he's none the wiser yet. What happens when he finally gets home from that hunting trip?
You can imagine the scene. Esau comes back all tired and hungry, expecting to receive this incredible blessing from his father, only to find out that Jacob has swooped in and stolen it.
I bet that didn't go over so well. What was Esau's reaction?
The source describes him as being absolutely devastated. He cries out to his father in anguish, begging for a blessing too.
That's heartbreaking, to have something you believed was rightfully yours, something so significant, just snatched away like that. What does Isaac do? Can he give Esau a blessing too, even though he's already given the main one to Jacob?
Isaac tries his best, but it's not the same. He tells Esau that he will still have prosperity and strength, but ultimately he will be subservient to his younger brother.
So even though Isaac was tricked, that original prophecy still comes to pass, almost like destiny, finds a way even when humans try to interfere.
It does raise a lot of questions about the limits of free will, doesn't it? If the outcome was already predetermined, do their choices even really matter?
It's a bit of a mind bender, but even if the final destination is set, it seems like the journey and the choices they make along the way still have consequences.
Absolutely. And those consequences are pretty serious in this case.
Yeah.
Esau is so furious about what Jacob and Rebekah have done, he vows to kill him.
Whoa. That escalated quickly. What does Jacob do? Does he have to go into hiding or something?
Rebekah, fearing for her son's life, she urges Jacob to flee to her brother Laban's house in Haran. She tells Isaac that she's sending Jacob off to find a wife, hoping that Esau will cool down in the meantime.
Smart move, Rebekah. So Jacob goes into exile, leaving behind his family and this, very angry brother. What happens to him in Haran?
Well, that's a whole other story. Let's just say Jacob's time in Haran is filled with its own share of challenges and triumphs. He works for Laban for many years, marries his daughters, and eventually returns home with a large family and, considerable wealth.
So it sounds like even though he started out with deception, he kind of, finds his own success in the end. But does he ever actually reconcile with Esau?
After many years, Jacob decides to return to his homeland. He sends messengers ahead to Esau, hoping to make amends and ensure a safe return. But the messengers come back with some unsettling news. Esau's coming to meet him with 400 men.
Oh no, that doesn't sound good at all. What does Jacob do? Does he, prepare for battle?
He's terrified, understandably. He divides his people and his possessions and sends gifts ahead to Esau, hoping to appease him. But that night, something extraordinary happens. He wrestles with a mysterious figure, often interpreted as an angel or even God himself.
Whoa, a wrestling match with a divine being. That's intense. What happens?
Jacob prevails, but not without injury. He receives a permanent limp as a reminder of this encounter. It's seen as a symbol of his transformation and his new identity as Israel, meaning he who struggles with God.
So this, divine wrestling match, does it prepare him for facing Esau?
It seems so. When the brothers finally meet, something amazing happens. Esau runs to Jacob and embraces him. They weep and reconcile, and all of Jacob's fears just melt away.
That's incredible. After all the rivalry, the deception, the anger, they find forgiveness and reconciliation. It's a powerful reminder that even the most, fractured relationships can heal.
It really speaks to the power of forgiveness, doesn't it? And the possibility of redemption, even after making some pretty serious mistakes.
So what can we take away from this deep dive into the story of Esau and Jacob? It's a story that's been told and retold for centuries, and it seems like everyone has their own interpretation of it.
It's a story that grapples with these big universal questions, isn't it? Fate, free will, ambition, family dynamics. It challenges our ideas about right and wrong, and reminds us that even flawed characters are capable of growth and change.
It also makes you think about the choices we make and how those choices can have a ripple effect, impacting not just ourselves, but also future generations.
Exactly. And it leaves us with a final question to ponder. What would you have done in Esau or Jacob's shoes? Would you have clung to your birthright no matter what? Or would that bowl of stew have been too tempting to resist?
That's a question we can all chew on, maybe over a bowl of stew. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating and enduring story of Esau and Jacob. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.